Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where I believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that there is a lot of power in accepting the cards in our hand to be able to play the best game possible. That's what we're going to chat about today. I'm so excited to talk to you about it, especially with summer coming up and keeping it in mind as we play. I don't know about you, but we play a lot more games as a family during this season, like when we're on family vacation and so forth. You know, Christmas might rival it, but we do play a little bit more games when we're at the lake or maybe camping. And it's really great to take moments when you're in that to like see how we play the games. Do we play defensively? Do we play, are we complainers about, if the game gets thrown a little bit by something? And this episode might make you think about that and sit with you a little bit during the summer. And hopefully this episode will come up for you later when you're playing those games and to remind you about all of the great juicy goodness that we talk about in this podcast today. One thing that I wanted to make sure is that if you're not on my email list, you might want to hop on it. I send encouraging stories. And lately, you know how in the podcast I've been sharing things that I love? Occasionally in my emails, I share things that I love. Like the last email that I sent out, I shared this link for literally, it's this spray that you use in your hair and it thickens your hair. And I don't know about you, but I am at an age in my life when this is coming in wildly handy and that I can tell that it's working. And it is literally $14 on Amazon for 2 bottles. So it's, a place where I just share some things that I love that I think make life easier. Not like I'm sharing all the time, like, an influencer on Instagram. Just my top finds of things that I think will literally make your life easier. So that plus kind of like what's going on in the podcast, what's going on, in the coaching world and offers that I can give you. And most of all, just that encouragement to give you a pump back up into life. And I don't send a ton of emails. I just send a few, here and there, nothing that's even on schedule, but maybe like 1 a quarter, sometimes if you're lucky once a month, because that's the way I roll, right? But if you want to get on the email list and you are not, you can go to myfriendmisha.com and then just scroll all the way down and you can click join email list now. And I will put the link to that in the show notes. And I will also put the link to that hair thickening spray that I just mentioned in the show notes. All right, now jumping into today's podcast. If you have never joined us before for a podcast, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. A reminder that Season 1 and Season 2 is a chronological story from my journals from when I was 15 and pregnant, and all of the different big themes that we navigate in those seasons, like grief and, really rocky relationships, betrayal, forgiveness, and we walk through suicide. We walk through major life hiccups, So if you are interested in listening to that story and you are new to this podcast, it is so fun to keep crossing paths with people who are interested in the podcast. If you're looking for that, you can scroll all the way back to Season 1, Episode 1, and then you can go to Episode 2. And that's why I titled them with the numbers in front of the titles so that you could keep track and kind of go through the podcast in the chronological order that it was originally presented in. So in Season 3, we are simply diving into all things that help us to maintain and create a better internal environment to then allow our external environment to reflect what we are experiencing internally. That is the goal. And so really it's just holding a space for talking about the ways that we can create the best life that we can. And today we are talking, at least we're starting off by talking about card games. Let's jump in. Last weekend, I was at a youth camp and I was playing cards with a group of kids. And there was this one kid, when he was dealing, he accidentally turned 2 cards over. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and I was like, no big deal. Just switch the cards out. It's not a big deal. And he goes, I have 2 uncles that would have lost their minds if that happened when we were playing cards. And I was like, really? And he's like, yes. Like, they would have been like, oh, we're not playing. We're done. We're done. The game's over. We're not playing anymore. And I was like, are you serious? And I have played games with people who kind of lose their minds over the odds of the game getting messed up. And for me, as far as when I play cards, that has never been something for me. That has just been like, whatever, just switch it out. It's not a big deal. Keep moving, keep moving. And I do understand that some people in some games, when counting cards matters or being aware of things, like I do understand the really deep intricacies. But to me, I'm kind of like, well, you could just reshuffle all the cards. That wouldn't be a big deal if you needed to. You know what I mean? So what about you? Like, how do you feel when you are playing games and something like that happens? When a card gets revealed that shouldn't have, or dealt to the opposite, like the wrong person in the wrong order, and what is your response? Or what do you know of from having played with people? I think that's such an interesting place to start. Just like, where are you coming from? And here's a wild truth about the human brain. The human brain actually hates not being in control. And when things feel random or chaotic, our minds get really creative in trying to fake control. Back in 1975, there was a brilliant psychologist named Ellen Langer, and she coined a term for this. She called it the illusion of control. She did this fascinating experiment, and she gave one group of people a random lottery ticket, and the other group got to choose their own numbers. And later, when she asked each of them how much money it would take to buy the ticket back from them, people who chose their own numbers wanted way more money, even though the odds of winning were exactly the same. So why, right? It's because choosing the numbers gave them a feeling of control, even if it changed nothing, like if it didn't change the odds at all. The choice created a psychological attachment. This illusion shows up everywhere. It's so interesting that, like, when we feel so even attached to our stuff, I was reading through a post that somebody made. They were trying to get their child ready to go to college and to leave the house and all of these things. And she said, Maria Kondo'd the heck out of his room. Maria Kondo? I guess it's Kondo, right? Yes, Kondo. She really walks you through letting go of emotional attachment to things to be able to clean out your life. At a casino, people will allegedly hit the slot machine button harder, thinking that it will actually change the outcome. Or in traffic, if we change lanes constantly, trying to predict getting there faster, thinking we're controlling the flow of traffic, in our minds, we think we're actually making a difference. And there's a lot of energy spent trying to make a difference. And in card games, someone sees a card that is dealt out of order or flipped over, and suddenly the odds are ruined. But if you are being real and you really level it, the odds don't get ruined. That's just the next moment in a game ruled by chance. The new card is the new odds. Oh, think about that for a sec. What we are reacting to isn't the actual card. It's the rupture of the illusion that we had. We thought it was going to be a certain way, and then it wasn't. And this is, when we apply it to life, this is how we actually create so much of our own suffering as well. Not from what is, but what we thought was supposed to happen. That's the tension, the loss of the imagined control. And the real power comes from not controlling the outcomes. It's releasing the need to. When we can let go of what we thought was supposed to be is when we actually can focus on all of the new possibilities, all of the new potentials. Because when life deals you a new card, we have to learn to say, instead of saying, why didn't this happen? We have to start adapting and saying, now that this has happened, what do I want to do with what is now in front of my face? Have you ever been with someone that has complete freedom with like not getting stuck? It's literally so amazing. I have a friend, her name's Megan, and she is a lot like this. Like, she has this vision that she wants to do a photo shoot in white dresses with sunflowers and white horses and, high Wellington boots. I think that's what they're called. And she'll be like, we're going to find it. We're going to find it. And then the next turn, you don't find it. And she's like, it's going to be around we're going to figure it out. And then all of a sudden there's this field with white horses and she's knocking on the owner's door asking if we can use the horses. And just literally everything like works out for her, because when a door shuts, when she's not finding it, she doesn't focus on what's not happening, right? She focuses on what's next. And well, maybe it's going to be something different. And maybe it's not sunflowers. Maybe it's tulips. I don't know, right? Like, for her, she just adapts. And so many of us get something in our mind and then we get stuck. I love the analogy that you cannot push the river. You can paddle, you can steer, and you can show up, but you can't control the current. The wise don't resist it. They ride it. They move with it. They say, oh, this is the direction we're now going in life. Well, what can I create inside of this? There's a story that Buddha told about 2 arrows. He said the first arrow is the unavoidable physical or emotional pain of life. Something happens like illness or loss, disappointment, aging, things that are inevitable parts of life. And the second arrow is the mental suffering we inflict on ourselves by resisting it, resenting, or ruminating over the first arrow. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen. Why me? This isn't fair. I can't stand it. Right? All of the things that come after the first arrow happens. And we can't avoid that first arrow, but we always have a choice about the second. When we accept what is, we free ourselves from needless suffering. Going back to the card game example, if you have played with someone that goes berserko when something happens, like, oh, no, that card goes to this person and this, it's like, wow, just notice. And maybe it's you, right? Just notice how much energy and effort actually doesn't even need to be there. Like, in what ways can we remove those second arrows and just allow? There was a neuroscience study done in 2010, and it found that people in high acceptance had 50% less cortisol release when faced with a stressor. So just a refresher, cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone, released by the adrenal glands in response to threats or pressure, right? Chronic high cortisol is linked to anxiety, depression, fatigue, and poor immune function. So jumping back to the study, they brought people into the lab and they put them into like a stressful situation, one that was designed to trigger anxiety, right, or self-consciousness or pressure, the types of moments that would mimic what a first arrow would look like. But here is the twist. One group was trained in acceptance, like not to fight with their feelings, not to fix them, not to explain them away, just to notice them with curiosity. Like, oh, here's anxiety. Here's tightness in my chest. That's okay. Another group was trying to reframe or control their feelings, and a third group used zero strategy. So the results were that the people who practiced acceptance, right? Like, oh, I'm noticing this. They had less cortisol in their system. And if that's your main stress hormone, like what your body releases with all of the threats and the chaos of life, less cortisol actually means more clarity, more calm, more control. So if they felt the first arrow, but they didn't actually receive or shoot the second, however you want to look at that. When life deals you a weird hand, right? Or something unexpected drops into your day, when your biology, when you train yourself to start listening and being like, okay, so this is a pivot, or, oh, this is a little bit of a hijack to what I thought was going to happen, but I'm accepting that this is the path that we're doing today. This is where we're going. This is what needs to happen, or the fire that needs to be put out, or something that needs to be done, right? Instead of fighting it and letting your body tighten up, when you meet it with presence, you literally stay in your power. And do you also see how that also gives you the ability to handle or deal with what is coming so much easier? So it's not just like wisdom. It's not just like insight. It's actually science. It's neuroscience and seeing how the brain functions. It's fascinating. So I want to take this apart and kind of look at things that can help us maybe embrace being able to shift or pivot easily. If we take a look at a rock climber, sometimes a rock climber will be climbing a mountain and the route will crumble and they have to adapt. So they have to kind of trust their skill and immediately find the new route. Every moment that they lament and find like that, oh my word, I can't believe this happened. Like they're putting themselves in danger and peril. They have to shift and adapt immediately. Or what about anything that's done like improvisationally, like jazz? Musicians are like thrown something new, and whatever chord comes next, they have to create beauty on the spot with their music. They do it and they perform it live. It's fascinating. I love thinking about improvisational comedy because one of the main rules of improv comedians, right? They don't get a script. They learn how to step out on stage with a live audience, having no idea what's coming. And one of the first things that they're taught to follow is saying yes and. Like, oh no, something's happening. These aliens are melting the ice cream truck, right? Like instead of going, well, that is really stupid. That's such a dumb thing for me to try to play off of. Why would you say that? They say yes, and it buys them a little bit of time to think about what's coming next, right? And then they say something that hopefully will draw a laugh from the crowd by the way that they quickly, on the spot, shifted to the wild and bizarre thing that the person on stage with them threw at them. Like, did you ever watch that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? With Drew Carey, Wayne Brady. It was like a whole cast of improv comedians and they would play different games. Jake and I used to love that show. And here they are in front of a national audience and they are told something so wild and wacko, and they immediately just have to get into the mode of what they've been thrown, right? I used to love the segment called Greatest Hits when they were like infomercial hosts and they were trying to sell the greatest hits of like a CD that they wanted the audience to buy. And they would describe the most wacky, the most wacky greatest hits. And they were just making you laugh. And then at the very end, they would say something like, and it's one song on 3 CDs or something like that. Okay, like if you never saw it, you're probably not totally getting what I'm saying. But the point is simply that when you are in a situation like improv and you have a national audience, you have to respond immediately. You have to play off of it and say yes and. And I think that has a lot of hold over the way that we approach life. Saying yes and means to like accept what you've just been given and then build from it. And I think that there is so much power in the way that improv or someone who is doing something like rock climbing, right? And something happens that was unexpected, and they have to immediately shift and accept what is happening or what just happened to be able to shift and create the best outcome that they can. And so we often have this great plan for our life or for our day, or, we just didn't want something bad like that to happen or to land in our lap, right? Like if a breakup happens or a job change or a diagnosis, any sort of card that you would call a weird card in the deck, a card that we feel like wasn't supposed to be dealt to us. And we resist and we spend time saying, that's not what I ordered. But the moment that we stop resisting and we say yes, and now what, we open ourselves to new possibility. I love to say when one door shuts, like 5 more open, maybe more than 5, right? 20 more open. There's so many more possibilities that you weren't able to see before. The trick really is in teaching ourselves not to get stuck standing in front of that door that has now been slammed in our face and our nose is right up against it. And so many times we want to sit in front of that door and literally complain and say, this isn't how it was supposed to be. If we can begin to start to accept that the new card that now needs to be dealt, that is the new odds. That we can adapt to what is and not necessarily what should have been. I feel like the more that we do that, the more that we clear the air, the more that we can think without the fog, the more we can see the options in front of us. If we learn to live by how we play the cards we're dealt, even the unexpected ones, and we start to master that, that's actually the real game. The game never was what was supposed to be. The game is what is. The odds are always the odds. Like you can't, I love the idea that we just aren't big enough to mess it up. We actually aren't. It was always the plan so that we could learn what we needed to learn, or what we still need to learn. I love the quote by Brianna Wiest that says, "You cannot miss what is meant for you. You cannot lose what is yours." And so take a moment, just do a little inventory. See if you're fighting anything in your reality. A disappointment, a delay, whatever unexpected card might be sitting in your hand. And just pause for a moment. And breathe into your heart space. Take even just 30 seconds to do this. And even say silently to yourself, these are my cards. These are the cards. Now what creative move can I make? And guaranteed the game will unfold differently. The moment we can accept it, the game unfolds differently. I hope that you can see that you have more power than you think you do when you accept the cards that you are dealt and you play your hand well. All right, my friend, I hope that you had a great takeaway from today's podcast. I wanted to remind you that to support the Mindset Check podcast, when you are shopping on Amazon, you can use the My Friend Misha link. You simply go to amazon.com/shop/My Friend Misha, and then anything that you purchase, we would receive a percentage of that for referring you to Amazon. It does not charge you more, which is so great because you can support us while you're just doing what you regularly do in your life. I don't know about you, but I shop on Amazon probably a little too much. It's wild to me how convenient Amazon has become. And instead of running to the store, I literally will be like, that'll be here faster than I am going to be getting to the store. So I'm going to order it. I don't know if that's the same for you, but Amazon has become such a quick and great convenience in our life. So again, support the Mindset Check podcast by going to amazon.com/shop/my-friend-Misha. Thank you so much for joining us for today's podcast. I want to leave you with a quote by Robert Lewis. He says, "Life is not a matter of holding good cards, but of playing a poor hand well." Until next time, my friend.